Hello, my name is Samantha Windish, and I will be doing my advocacy speech on child abuse and how we need to do better as a system that is failing these children. So to start off, I also have notes to the left of me because this is a dense speech that I will be referencing off of. To start out, I want you all to think back to when you were 5, 6, 7 years old, in adolescence. What was that one fear that made you want to lock yourself in your room and not come out? Maybe it was jumping on the deep end of the pool, or learning how to ride a bike for the first time without training wheels, or the scary next door neighbor dog that barks at you when you go outside. Or maybe it's that weird lumpy green vegetable your mom put on your dinner plate that smells weird. Now, on the other hand, think about that fear being your parents. The fear of being around them, the fear of being beaten every day, or the fear of knowing that when your mom walks out that front door for work that you're going to be sexually assaulted by a caretaker, and there's nothing you could do about it. While many children have the privilege of being nurtured, cared for, treated with kindness, respect, and love, there's also children that suffer from neglect and various forms of abuse from a parent, a guardian, or someone they know that cares about them or they care about themselves, that can significantly impact their future and how they carry themselves throughout their lifetime. Now, many people say children are the future and how we need to care for them and respect them and nurture them because they are going to be what our society and nation becomes. But the sad reality of the fact is our generation of children, they're not being treated right. They're not being given the right resources they need to make an impactful future. The neglect and abuse that they are enduring does not only leave them with physical scars that me and you can see, but it leaves them with psychological, long-lasting effects that will follow them for the rest of their life and impact daily decisions they make. This does not only just affect the children that are enduring the abuse, but it also affects you, because when you're old and in a retirement home, the children now today are going to be the people working in these homes that maybe lack the skills of empathy and stuff because they didn't receive that as a child themselves. Or it's going to be the next door neighbor kid that's playing with your kid outside that's enduring these abuse behind closed doors that maybe has anger issues or lashes out or doesn't understand their emotions and can portray that onto your child in a negative way, that your child's going to be interacting. And they're social butterflies. They learn from each other and can learn these behaviors as well. Now, as for my credibility to speak on this matter, I wish that I chose to speak on this matter and advocate for it based off of the multiple horrendous news stories that I have seen over the past few years. But as myself a victim of multiple years of sexual and physical abuse from a caretaker and a parent, I have chose to strongly advocate on this matter because the children that cannot speak for themselves and do not have the resources to get out of these situations needs someone to advocate for them. Now, there's not only children just suffering from these multiple forms of sexual and physical abuses every day, but there are multiple children dying every single day from these forms of abuse. In 2021, the national average of children dying from abuse every day was 4.8. So within the 24-hour time span of either you waking up or going to bed, 4.8 children died that day from abuse. Because our nation does not hold strong enough policies or resources to completely prevent this abuse and does not have the capacity and fostering systems to rescue all these children from these crappy environments they're in. So the problem here is not only the abuse itself, but it's also the failing law systems and support systems we have in place for these children. Yes, we have federally and stated child abuse prevention acts, also known as the CAPTA, which funds each state's individual funding to make their own support and prevention, identification, and treatment activities for these children. And we also have mandated reporters and social workers to check on these children and the well-being in their home lives. But these alone are not enough to save the children. There are hundreds of cases of funded programs and social workers checking on these children in their homes for suspected abuse, and the children still died from various injuries that went unnoticed after multiple manipulative parents coerced these social workers into thinking everything was fine and conditioned their children to keep their mouths shut, and the abuse was not spoken about towards the authorities, because children are impressionable, they're young, they don't know better. They don't have a voice of their own yet. So speaking on this, here are just a few tragic stories about how our system has failed these children. For one, I'd like to start out with Gabriel Fernandez. He was an 8-year-old boy who tragically endured horrific torture like eating cat litter, getting a shotgun with BBs to his groin and multiple regions with lodged BBs in his body that got infected. And various forms of strangulation and brutal beating to the head for months before being brutally beaten to death by his mother and his mother's boyfriend. Social workers did not put this as a red flag, though. They checked on him and they went to his house. But everything, they said it was fine, and Gabriel said that he was okay because his parents had conditioned him to do that. And ultimately, the lack of further checking on him or wellness checks led to his death at 8 years old. Terrell Peterson, a 5-year-old boy who was brutally beaten to death by his foster mother. It had been reported that his mother was depriving him of food and water as well. He was once brought to the emergency room, and it was noted that Terrell suffered from various cuts, bruises, and cigarette burns, but nothing came of this, and he was ultimately beaten to death and died from malnutrition at the age of 5 years old. Aim Deal, a 10-year-old girl who endured beatings and was locked in a small plastic tote slightly bigger than her 60-pound body. Eventually, she got too big for this box, and one night, she was shoved in it again, but there was not enough holes her body was covering for oxygen, and she died 1 week shy of her 11th birthday due to asphyxiation. Police were at her house the day prior, and they had reports. They saw her, nothing was reported, and they came back after a call and saw that she was dead and recognized that girl as the girl they did not come back to check on the day prior. These are just only a few of the thousands of cases that have occurred of child abuse and deaths that have came from it. As previously stated, 4.8 children average die each day from abuse. That's almost 2,000 reported deaths per year. In 2020, 4 million kids were involved in an investigation of maltreatment. 618,000 kids were found to be abused or neglected, and 70% of that came from the parents or caretakers in their homes. Now keep in mind, these statistics are only accounting for the reported cases of abuse. There are still many of children that have not had the opportunity or resources to report their abusers. So this is just a rough national average. With these numbers in mind, we only have the federal act that we instated as the CAPTA to fund each state's prevention of child abuse. Here in Minnesota, we have the Minnesota Maltreatment of Minors Act that establishes a system for reporting possible child abuse and neglect to the government agencies that provide protective services and conduct criminal investigations for these children. But just because we have these acts to mandate and report and do wellness checks does not mean that this will be enough to save the children. These previous cases I told you guys about showed how our system continues to fail children time after time again. Children are only saved and people are only prosecuted if they end up having enough evidence to take the child, or worst case scenario, the child dies from the abuse where there's finally enough evidence but at the cost of the child's life. We need to implement a mandatory system where if there's suspected abuse, we need to do a formal investigation. Take the child out of the environment to a safe place for investigation, and investigating them in their abusive space in front of their parents is not a comfortable place to open up. They're coerced and they're not going to speak up. Studies have shown that children are more comfortable and open to speak about themselves and express themselves in a safe place, and that alone can get confessions from these children. We also need to do more follow-up acts. Even if a police is notified by a school to check on a child and they go in there, the parents are often ready for these people to come, and of course they're going to have their acts together. They put their best performances on. We need to have unannounced, unsuspected visits 1 to 2 days prior after these formal investigations to see really what is going on with this child. What are they actually living through before the stage doors open when the police walk in and they're expecting it. Now, if this may be at a disadvantage for police officials because it's going to take more time out of their busy days to go do another wellness check for something that they deemed safe. But just one extra wellness check could end up saving this child's life, and they could walk in and save them at a very low point of something that horrific is happening. In conclusion, child abuse is a global issue that is silent and hushed, but we need to resolve this by us and officials. The physical injuries and scars can still be seen and cured, but the scars that are suffering on the soul of the victim will last forever. The abuse can cycle over generations. We need to protect future generations from this abuse and work together as a current generation to save these children that are suffering from abuse, because as I said, it is generational and abusers often can become abusers. And the only way to prevent this and eliminate this is to cut it at the root and work together to stop it now before we have to see hundreds of more cases of children dying in the news. We all know it's an issue. We just need to come together and work together to help these children, because it's our responsibility to help them and save them and advocate for them. Thank you all for listening to my advocacy speech.